Hello and welcome. Today I will share with you 5 chess habits that win games, and I will go over how and why you should adopt these habits into your chess routine. These 5 habits are 1. Practice chess daily. 2. Study tactics. 3. Perform safety checks. 4. Play regularly. And 5. Analyze chess games. While I go over this information, I will also be playing through one of the greatest chess games in history. This game was played by Paul Morphy, who in 1857, at the age of 19, won the first American Chess Congress by crushing all his opponents, defeating all the top American players. He then decided to travel to Europe for a year, where he defeated many of the top European players there as well. The game I will be covering today was played in 1858 at the Paris Opera House. Paul Morphy had the white pieces, and he played against 2 players, the Duke of Brunswick and the Duke's friend Count Isouard. Paul Morphy opened with e4, moving his king pawn out too, and the Duke and the Count moved their king pawn out as well. Paul Morphy then moved knight to f3, attacking their pawn. In response, the Duke and the Count played pawn to d6, the Philidor defense. And now, before we go further into the game, I will talk about the first chess habit of practicing chess daily. How to do this? Well, that's generally up to you. You can go over games, you can play games, you can watch videos, read books. There are many ways to achieve this, but the important thing is to at least do some kind of daily study, just to get in the habit of studying every day. And a good way to do this is by trying to focus on one of your weaknesses in this daily study. And why would you do this daily? Well, just to keep your skills sharp and not to get rusty by taking too long of a break. And hopefully, if you improve on one thing every day, you'll gradually improve your chess game. And one of the many things that you may focus on in your daily chess practice are tactics, which brings me to the second chess habit, studying tactics. And if we go back to the game, it is Paul Morphy's turn. He next moved pawn to d4, attacking Black's e5 pawn, and in response, the pair of players playing against Morphy performed a tactic known as a pin. They pinned his knight to the queen, and it forces Morphy to make a decision on what to do about this pin, as he also has a pawn that is attacked on d4, which the knight was protecting. And so Paul Morphy trades pawns in the center. And the pair facing him, they decide to take Paul Morphy's knight. And in response, Paul Morphy recaptures, and the Count and the Duke recapture their pawn, keeping material even. And so we saw a pinning tactic. And before we get deeper into the game, we'll discuss a little bit about why you should study tactics regularly. By doing this, it improves one area that most players are weak in, and that is tactics. Generally, most games under the 2000 rated player Most of those games are lost due to a tactical oversight. They just don't see a tactic, something that they miss, and this can be caused by just not practicing tactics often enough. With daily practice, your tactical abilities should improve. So, how to study tactics? Well, you can solve problems every day from a book, from the computer, online. There are many ways, but just try to at least do some type of tactical study, even if it's for 5 minutes a day. A little is better than nothing. And now we'll move on to the third habit: perform safety checks. Now, how to do this? Safety checks are very important because they can help you prevent making blunders. When performing a safety check, all you have to do is just ask yourself, is my king safe? Are my pieces safe? And my pawns? So if we look at this position with Paul Morphy playing against the Count and the Duke, Paul Morphy then moved bishop to c4. And if the Count and the Duke would ask themselves by doing a safety check, is my king safe? Well, in this position, there's a possibility of check. And if they would do their safety check, they would find out that the f7 square is weak, being attacked by both the bishop on c4 and the queen. So with a safety check, a possible loss of the game can be avoided, and many blunders can be prevented as well. So by checking that the f7 square is under attack and possibly checking and mating the king, the Count and the Duke decide to block this attack and place the knight on f6. And a little bit more about safety checks. To perform these, ask yourself, if it's your move, can my king be attacked? If your king is safe, then move on to your pieces. Are all my pieces safe and cannot be taken? And finally, check your pawns to make sure they are safe as well. And then it is also important to check for other possible threats. Is there a possibility that your pieces could be forked? A double attack that you could not fight against? So after you've checked that your king, pieces, and pawn are safe, and there are no other threats such as forks or pins, anything that could cause problems, it is also important before you move to ask yourself if your opponent's king, pieces, and pawns are safe. By asking this question, you may find that they have an unprotected piece that you can take for free. So this is important to do these safety checks. Just as in the game where Paul Morphy threatened a checkmate, and by doing a simple safety check, the Count and the Duke were able to block this attack by moving knight to f6. And then Paul Morphy continues the attack by moving his queen and performing another double attack, attacking f7 but also attacking the b7 square. And now the Duke and the Count must find a satisfactory move to fight against this attack. And so the Count and the Duke move queen to e7, covering the f7 square to prevent a checking attack, but leaving open the possibility of white taking the b7 square with the queen. But if this piece was taken, it is possible for the Count and the Duke to move their queen to b4, attacking white's queen and checking white's king, and this would prevent the white queen from further taking the A8 rook. So black would lose a pawn, but not anything further. And so here, Morphy continues development with knight to c3. And black responds with c6, which opens up his queen to protect the b7 pawn. And then Morphy continues on with bishop to g5, pinning the f6 knight to the queen. And so Morphy is now attacked. Black has moved to b5 and attacked the c4 bishop. And in response, Morphy decides to sacrifice his knight. The count and the duke accept, recapturing with a pawn, and now bishop takes b5, checking black with the bishop, and black is forced to defend. He blocks with a knight to d7. And at this point, Morphy castles, adding pressure to this d7 knight. And before we go further into the game, let me get back to the next habit that will help you win games. Habit number 4, play regularly. And how you can do this is playing opponents either online or at a physical board. You also may enjoy blitz games, as many do, but I recommend that you play some slower games as well that give you time to think and calculate, practice your calculation skills with longer games where you can do a deeper dive into the position. But blitz games are good as well, especially if you're practicing an opening and you want to get in a lot of games in a short period of time. And why you should play regularly? Well, that will help you work on all the skills that you learn if you've practiced tactics or studied end games or strategy. By playing many games, playing regularly, you can put all that practice into action at the board and see how your study works out in a live game. Okay, now back to the game. It appears that Morphy has just castled long to the queen side, and he has an attack on this knight at d7. So in response, the count and the duke bring their rook over to help protect this knight. And in response, Morphy sacrifices his rook for a knight, and the count recaptures. But this rook is now pinned to the king, and Morphy brings additional pressure against this d7 rook by bringing his rook to d1 into the attack. And before we finish the last and final moves of this game, I will go over the fifth and final chess habit that will help you win games. And that is to analyze chess games. How to do this? Well, the best way would be to go over a game without the use of a computer at first and just try and calculate the moves in your head and see what tactics and what strategy and nuances of the position you can figure out on your own before using a computer. And then once you have gone through the game and tried to figure out as much as you can without the aid of a computer, then it's fine to play the game, run it through the computer, and see what parts of the position you missed or were not able to see with the help of the computer. And one other thing, it's great to go over games, especially like this one here that Paul Morphy played, and go over all the games of the greatest chess masters of all time. and see how they play and what made them so spectacular. But I highly recommend that you go over your own games as well, especially games that you lose, which you're more likely to learn more from your losses, especially if you try and figure out what it is that you did wrong, where you could have improved, and what you can do to help you win the next time. A good goal is to find at least one mistake that you made and try not to repeat that mistake going forward. So, how to go over games? Write them down as you play, then go back over the games, analyze them without a computer, then run it through the computer afterwards, see if you missed anything. And why to do this? Well, it'll just vastly improve your game. It'll help you slowly remove weaknesses, find what you're doing wrong, and hopefully you'll just have steady improvement as you do this more and more often. And now we'll go back to the conclusion of this game in the Paris Opera House, 1858. Paul Morphy as White, playing against the Count Isouard and the Duke of Brunswick. And here, Paul Morphy has just moved rook to d1. He's attacking this pinned rook on d7. And next, the queen moves to e6, removing the pin of this f6 knight, so that now it will be able to help protect this rook on d7. And next, the white bishop captures the rook, forking the king and the queen. And so, knight to d7 takes the forking piece, removing the attacker. But now, an amazing move, queen to b8 check. Here, Paul Morphy sacrifices his queen, one of only 3 of his pieces that are left. Of course, black takes the queen, but this decoy sacrifice of the queen, a wonderful chess tactic, allows Morphy to move in and checkmate. With his final 2 pieces, the Count and the Duke lose. An amazing game, one of the greatest in history. And hopefully, after seeing this game, it will inspire you with the use of these 5 chess habits to go on and win many games yourself. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this video, hit the like button and please subscribe. Have a great and wonderful day. Thank you.